On a freezing Christmas Eve in 2019, when most families were gathering around warm fireplaces and twinkling trees, an 8-year-old German shepherd named Rex was about to make a discovery that would change 3 lives forever. What this retired police dog did in those critical moments didn't just save 2 people from certain death, it reminded an entire community what true heroism really looks like. But before we dive into this incredible story, if you believe in the unbreakable bond between humans and animals, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This channel is dedicated to sharing real stories of courage, compassion, and hope. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. December 24th, 2019. Millbrook, a small town nestled in upstate New York, was blanketed in nearly 2 feet of snow. The temperature had plummeted to a brutal 12 degrees Fahrenheit, with wind chills making it feel like -5, the kind of cold that cuts through your bones within minutes. Officer Marcus Chen had been with the Millbrook Police Department for 15 years, and for the last 8 of those years, his partner hadn't been human. Rex, a German shepherd with alert brown eyes and a distinctive white patch on his chest, had been Marcus's canine partner since he was just a puppy. Together, they'd tracked missing children, located evidence in criminal cases, and provided comfort at community events. But 3 months earlier, everything had changed. Rex had been injured during a routine traffic stop when he pursued a suspect who'd fled into the woods. A torn ACL meant surgery, months of recovery, and ultimately, early retirement from active duty. The department's policy was clear. Working dogs who couldn't return to full duty would be retired. Marcus had adopted Rex immediately, of course. They were family. But he could see something in his partner's eyes that broke his heart. Rex had always been a dog with purpose, driven by an intense need to work, to help, to serve. Now, lying on the couch in Marcus's living room while the officer went to work without him, Rex seemed lost. "He's depressed," Marcus had told his wife, Sarah, just the week before. "He doesn't understand why he can't come with me anymore." Sarah, a veterinarian, had nodded sympathetically. "Give him time. He's grieving his old life, but he'll find a new purpose." Little did they know how prophetic those words would be. That Christmas Eve morning, Marcus had volunteered to work the evening shift, so his colleagues with young children could be home early. It was just him at the station, along with Sergeant Rodriguez, the desk sergeant who was counting down the hours until his shift ended at 8 p.m. At home, Sarah was preparing for their small Christmas Eve gathering. Her parents were coming over, along with Marcus's sister and her family. The house smelled of cinnamon and pine, of sugar cookies baking and a ham glazing in the oven. Rex lay by the front window, his favorite spot, watching the snow fall in thick, relentless sheets. His ears perked up at every car that passed, hoping it might be Marcus's patrol car. But the hours dragged on, and Marcus didn't come home. Around 4 p.m., Sarah noticed Rex becoming increasingly agitated. He paced between the window and the back door, whining softly. She let him out into the fenced backyard, thinking he needed to relieve himself, but he just stood there in the snow, nose to the air, body tense. "What is it, boy?" Sarah asked, stepping out onto the porch. The cold hit her like a physical force. "Come on, it's too cold to be out here." But Rex wouldn't come. He kept staring toward the woods that bordered their property, the same woods that stretched for miles, connecting neighborhoods and eventually leading to the old Riverside area where some of the town's oldest homes stood. Finally, Sarah managed to coax him inside, but Rex remained restless, pacing and whining in a way she'd never seen before. Meanwhile, 8 miles away in the Riverside neighborhood, something terrible had unfolded. Harold and Evelyn Patterson, both 82 years old, had lived in their modest 2-story home for 54 years. They'd raised 4 children there, celebrated countless Christmases, and grown old together within those walls. Their children had all moved away over the years, scattered across the country, building their own lives. The Pattersons had always been fiercely independent, refusing to burden their kids or to leave the home filled with their precious memories. But age and illness had slowly crept up on them. Harold had advancing dementia, and Evelyn had recently suffered a minor stroke that affected her mobility. Still, they'd insisted they could manage on their own. That Christmas Eve morning, their furnace had stopped working. In the brutal cold, the house temperature had dropped rapidly. Evelyn, confused and frightened, had called what she thought was her daughter's number, but in her panic, she dialed incorrectly. The call never went through. By early afternoon, with the temperature inside the house dropping below 40 degrees, Harold's confusion had worsened dramatically. He'd insisted they needed to go outside to get help. Evelyn, disoriented from the cold and her own health issues, had followed her husband out the back door. They'd made it about 200 yards into the woods behind their house before Harold collapsed in the snow. Evelyn had tried to help him up, but she didn't have the strength. So she'd done the only thing she could think of. She lay down next to him, wrapped her arms around her husband of 60 years, and began to pray. The snow continued to fall, slowly covering them like a white shroud. Back at the Chen household, Rex had become impossible to control. Around 5:30 p.m., as Sarah was setting the table, Rex suddenly bolted to the back door and began barking frantically, something he rarely did. He scratched at the door with such urgency that Sarah rushed over. "Rex, what's wrong? What is it?" The dog's eyes were wild with distress, his entire body vibrating with tension. Sarah had been around working dogs her entire career. She knew this wasn't ordinary anxiety or restlessness. This was Rex's working behavior, his alert posture. He'd detected something, sensed something that his trained instincts told him required immediate action. Sarah made a decision that would save 2 lives. She grabbed her heavy coat, her phone, and Rex's leash, then opened the back door. Rex shot out like a bullet, pulling her toward the woods with such force she nearly lost her footing. "Rex, slow down," she called. But the dog was single-minded in his purpose. Sarah had no choice but to follow, her boots crunching through the deep snow as the winter evening grew darker. Sarah called Marcus as Rex pulled her deeper into the woods. "Marcus, something's wrong. Rex is acting like he's on a scent. He dragged me into the woods behind our house and he won't stop." Marcus felt his blood run cold. He trusted Rex's instincts implicitly. If the dog was alerting to something, there was something to find. "Keep your phone on. I'm coming with backup. Stay with him, but be careful." Marcus radioed Sergeant Rodriguez, grabbed emergency equipment from his patrol car, and headed home at full speed, lights blazing. He also called the volunteer fire department, requesting assistance for a possible search and rescue. In the woods, Sarah struggled to keep up with Rex. The snow was knee-deep in places, and the light was fading fast. Her hands were already numb despite her gloves, and her face felt like it was being sliced with razor blades from the wind. But Rex pressed on with unwavering determination, his nose to the snow, following a trail only he could detect. His police training had never left him. Those hundreds of hours of scent work, of learning to track and locate, were all coming back in this critical moment. After nearly 15 minutes of hiking through increasingly difficult terrain, Rex suddenly stopped and began digging frantically at a snowdrift, barking with urgent, sharp commands. Sarah's heart nearly stopped when she saw what looked like a dark coat partially visible beneath the snow. "Oh my God," she whispered, dropping to her knees and beginning to dig with her bare hands. The first face she uncovered was Harold's. His lips were blue, his eyes closed, skin white as the snow around him. For a horrible moment, she thought they were too late, but then she saw it, the faintest rise and fall of his chest. "They're alive!" Sarah shouted into her phone. "Marcus, they're alive! I need an ambulance to—" She looked around desperately, trying to orient herself. "We're about half a mile into the woods behind our house, heading northwest. There are 2 people, elderly, severe hypothermia. Tell them to hurry." Working quickly, Sarah began brushing snow off both Harold and Evelyn. The elderly woman's eyes fluttered open, confused and frightened. "It's okay. You're going to be okay," Sarah told her, even as she worried it might be a lie. They'd clearly been out here for hours. The miracle was that they were still breathing at all. Rex, his job not yet done, laid down next to the couple, pressing his warm body against Harold's side. Sarah understood immediately. He was trying to keep them warm. She did the same, lying on Evelyn's other side, using her own body heat to try to prevent any further heat loss. "Good boy, Rex," Sarah whispered, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Such a good boy." Marcus arrived at the edge of the woods with Sergeant Rodriguez and 2 firefighters carrying a stretcher and thermal blankets. They'd brought high-powered flashlights that cut through the gathering darkness. "Sarah!" Marcus called out. "Here, follow Rex's tracks." They found them within minutes. Marcus had never been more proud of his partner or more grateful for his wife's courage. The scene before him was both heartbreaking and beautiful. His wife and his dog, both lying in the snow, pressed against 2 elderly strangers, literally giving them their warmth. The firefighters worked quickly, carefully moving Harold and Evelyn onto stretchers, wrapping them in specialized thermal blankets designed for hypothermia victims. An ambulance was waiting at the nearest road access point. "Can you tell me your names?" one of the paramedics asked gently as they lifted Evelyn's stretcher. "Evelyn," she managed through chattering teeth. "Harold, my husband, is he?" "He's alive, ma'am. You both are. You're going to be okay." As they carried the Pattersons out of the woods, Rex walked alongside Harold's stretcher, as if still on duty, still protecting his find. Marcus watched his partner with a mixture of pride and awe. The retired police dog had just saved 2 lives. At Millbrook General Hospital, doctors worked through the night to stabilize Harold and Evelyn Patterson. Both had severe hypothermia, with core body temperatures that had dropped to dangerously low levels. Harold also had frostbite on his fingers and toes. "Another 30 minutes, maybe an hour, and we would have lost them both," Dr. Jennifer Walsh told Marcus and Sarah as they waited for news. "Whatever made you go out looking for them, it's nothing short of a miracle." Sarah looked down at Rex, who sat pressed against her leg, still alert, still watching. "Not a miracle," she said softly. "A hero." The Pattersons' children began arriving throughout the night, having received frantic calls from the hospital. They were shocked to learn what had happened, guilt-stricken that they hadn't been there, that they'd let their parents remain alone. But mostly they were grateful. Grateful that a dog they'd never met and a couple they'd never met had cared enough to save 2 strangers' lives. On Christmas morning, Harold and Evelyn were stable enough to have visitors. Their 4 children gathered around their hospital beds, holding their hands, saying all the things they'd waited too long to say. Marcus and Sarah came by with Rex around noon. They'd brought the Pattersons' favorite items from their home, recovered by police that morning: Evelyn's reading glasses, Harold's military service photo, a few other comfort items. When Rex walked into the room, Evelyn began to cry. "That's him," she whispered. "I remember his eyes, those beautiful eyes. He saved us." Rex approached her bed gently, resting his chin on the edge so she could pet him. His tail wagged slowly, contentedly. "He's a retired police dog," Marcus explained. "He was injured on duty and had to stop working. I think he missed having a purpose." "Well, he certainly found one," said James, the Pattersons' oldest son. "How can we ever thank you? All of you?" Sarah shook her head. "You don't need to thank us. Rex did all the work. We just followed." The story spread through Millbrook like wildfire. The local newspaper ran a front-page story with a photo of Rex sitting proudly next to a recovered Harold and Evelyn. The headline read, Retired K-9 officer refuses to retire from heroism. Regional news picked it up, then national outlets. Within days, Rex was being called America's most heroic dog. Letters poured into the police department from around the country. Children drew pictures of Rex. One envelope contained a handmade medal crafted by an 8-year-old girl who'd been rescued by a police dog herself years earlier. The Millbrook Police Department held a special ceremony in January, once the Pattersons had recovered enough to attend. In front of the entire community, Chief Davidson presented Rex with a commendation for heroism, the first ever given to a retired K-9. "Rex reminds us that being a hero isn't about what you can do," the chief said, his voice thick with emotion. "It's about what you choose to do when someone needs help. This dog, even in retirement, even while injured and no longer required to serve, chose to serve anyway. That's the definition of a hero." Harold Patterson, using a walker but standing tall, approached the podium. His voice was stronger now, his mind clearer with proper medication and treatment. "I'm a veteran," he said. "I served in Vietnam. I've seen courage and I've seen sacrifice, but I have never seen devotion like what this dog showed to two complete strangers. Rex didn't know us. He had no obligation to us, but he refused to let us die. He refused to give up." Harold paused, tears streaming down his weathered face. "Evelyn and we don't have much time left. But whatever time we have, we'll spend it thanking God for that dog and for Marcus and Sarah Chen. They gave us the greatest Christmas gift anyone could receive. More time to love each other, more time to tell our children we love them, more time to see our grandchildren grow." The ceremony ended with Rex receiving his medal, which Marcus attached to the dog's collar. Rex sat proud and tall, tail wagging, as the entire community rose in a standing ovation. But perhaps the most beautiful part of the story came later, when the Pattersons' children approached Marcus and Sarah with a request. "Our parents can't live alone anymore," James explained. "We're moving them to an assisted living facility closer to us. But they've asked for one thing. They want to know if maybe Rex could visit them sometimes. They say he's family now." Sarah smiled through her tears. "Of course. As often as they'd like." And so began a new chapter in Rex's life. No longer a police dog, no longer patrolling the streets, but still serving, still bringing comfort and joy. Once a week, Marcus or Sarah would drive Rex to visit the Pattersons at their new home. The staff there said those were always the best days, when Rex would come through the doors and the entire facility would light up. Harold and Evelyn lived for 3 more years after that Christmas Eve. 3 years of birthday celebrations, anniversaries, time with their children and grandchildren. 3 years they never thought they'd have. And through all of it, Rex was there, the guardian angel who'd refused to let them go. When Harold passed away in his sleep at 85, Rex attended the funeral. When Evelyn followed 6 months later, her children requested that Rex be there too, to say goodbye to the woman whose life he'd saved. "She never stopped talking about him," their daughter Mary said, kneeling down to hug Rex at the memorial service. "She said that when she was lying in that snow, sure she was dying, she saw an angel. And that angel had 4 legs and the most beautiful brown eyes she'd ever seen." Today, Rex is 13 years old, enjoying his golden years with Marcus and Sarah. He's slower now, his muzzle gray, his gait a little stiff from that old ACL injury, but his eyes are still bright, still alert, still watching. The medal he earned that January day sits in a shadow box in the Chen living room, along with photos of Harold and Evelyn, and letters from their children, thanking the dog who gave them back their parents. Marcus often says that Rex taught him the most important lesson of his career, that true service doesn't end when the uniform comes off. It's not about the title or the job. It's about the heart, the instinct to help, the refusal to turn away when someone needs you. Rex may have been retired from the police force, but he never retired from being a hero. And on that frozen Christmas Eve in 2019, when two lives hung in the balance, he proved that some callings are simply too strong to ignore. So the next time you see a service dog, retired or active, remember Rex. Remember that behind those loyal eyes is a soul dedicated to protecting, to serving, to loving without condition. And remember that heroism isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's a dog who refuses to rest, who pulls his owner into the woods in a snowstorm, who lies down next to strangers in the freezing cold and says simply, "I'm here. You're not alone. I've got you." If this story touched your heart, please share it. Hit that like button, leave a comment telling us about a time a pet or animal made a difference in your life, and subscribe for more true stories of courage, compassion, and hope. Because we could all use a reminder that heroes walk among us every day, some on 2 legs and some on 4. This has been the story of Rex, the dog who refused to retire from heroism. Thank you for watching, and Merry Christmas to you and everyone you love.